If you are going to provide a training, time will not help and training will not help if you don't allow people in this industry to challenge the information and hear out what they have to say. Understand maybe there are ways of improving that. And if they have a valid reason to do that, update the process and share it out with the team.
Hey, welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd Dawalt. I'm your host, and we are all about helping you, the construction business owner, have a more systematized business so you have more freedom, more impact, and more wealth. Think self-managing company, a business that runs without you. Here's what you're going to get from today's interview with Krysta Van Ranst of Building People. You're going to learn how construction companies can utilize grants to fund training programs and how you're already paying for this, but you're probably not using it. This was pretty interesting to me. I've never heard this before, but it's true. We'll also talk about some misconceptions around training and the word training in the construction industry, why you should allow employees to challenge existing processes and improve training methods. We talk about the difference between training and behavior change, the connection there. We have some specific advice if you struggle to get your team to fill out paperwork like daily logs, like so many people do, and why Krysta believes that convenience is overrated. Lots of great stuff in this one. So let's get to my interview with Krysta Van Ranst. I think you're going to be especially interested to learn how you can get grants to pay for training for your team because you're already paying for it. So here we go. Enjoy. Hi, Krysta. Welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about how construction companies can use grants to fund training programs.
It is a hidden secret that not only construction companies can utilize it, but any organization in many industries across our country. Just quickly to give a little bit of background as to what training grants are, the term grant often scares people away right from the start, but every state in our country has a form of what I consider proactive unemployment. So you're paying into unemployment already, and a portion of those unemployment dollars go towards these training grants. And the concept that the government has had, and every state is different, but the concept that they have all had is that if we provide training, if we provide funds for companies to apply for, they will train their people, and one of three things will happen. The first one, you as a company will still lay your folks off. Bummer, that's the least advantageous from the state's perspective. However, if those employees have still been trained, they ideally have more skills than they did prior, which will inevitably or hopefully allow them to get hired elsewhere more quickly than they would have in the past. Number two would be that you don't have to lay anybody off because you have now upskilled your folks and maybe reskilled them in new areas. And then the third and most exciting that the state would want to see is you'd utilize this training. You've upskilled your folks, your company has become more productive and more profitable. You then hire more people, thus in their mindset, reducing unemployment. So that's why they exist. And some states are definitely easier and harder than others. Some states have priority industries, and we can chat about that all day long, but I'll stop there to see kind of what additional questions you have in that regard.
When you say there are grants available, can you talk a little bit about the scale? How many dollars are we talking about? Are we talking about hundreds of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars?
The smallest grant we have seen is $10,000, which I do think at the end of the day, that's a lot. There is some effort. And so you do want to think about like, what is the value of putting in for those funds? But in certain states, right, training is a lot less expensive. And so it really might get you a lot further. I am here in Massachusetts, and the maximum here as of 2024 is $200,000, and you have 2 years to utilize it. States like Texas are $400,000 or $500,000. California is the same. New York City is $400,000. Florida is $100,000. So there are a lot of states that are, I would say, $50,000 to $100,000 is is more standard. And then, like I said, New York, Massachusetts, Texas, California, those are some of the outliers in being multiple hundreds of thousands.
Maybe a good way to cover some of these questions for folks listening would be: do you have an example, maybe a case study of a construction company you've worked with? Just talk through a little bit about how many employees they had, how large of a grant they got, and then how does it get used?
So most of our clients are construction companies. So I'll kind of preface that. The big important piece is that you need to understand what your business goals are and how training can relate to that. And so oftentimes people say, hey, I heard that there's free money. How can you help us get that? And we've been like, great, yes, that definitely is the case. And I wouldn't call it free. You're already paying into it anyway, so you might as well take advantage of it. But number two, we're trying to say, okay, what are your business goals or objectives that you have coming up in the next year or two? And often we hear, and I've heard this more times than not, either communication is an issue that we have, and then I have to understand, like, what does that mean to you? And what are you hoping will change? What is, like, how can we understand, what does improving communication look like? Because most of the states want to understand what are you doing now and how is the training going to truly help your business so that they can measure that success. And that's harder than you would think. So that's often, sometimes we hear like, oh, like communication is a big issue. And then we have to try and understand how we can measure that. Or on the flip side, they say, we want manager development training. And I say, great, why? And they'll say, well, because we haven't had manager development training before and our folks need it. And that's also great, but it still doesn't allow us to really measure anything. It allows us to measure that people didn't have training before and they now have training, and really trying to tell the story as to the value that manager training will have for the business, with the mindset in the background as to, like, how is it going to have some value around unemployment, right? And so that's why I tell that story, because it helps understand the bigger picture as to why these exist in the first place. To answer your other question, you said around like the size, we have written grants for companies that are as small as 13, and we are currently in the process of writing a national grant. And what I mean by that is that we are writing a grant for a client that is national, but we're writing one in California, we're writing one for them in Texas, and we're writing one for them in Massachusetts. And they are over 1,000 employees. So all sizes. We have written one for a company that is 10,000 employees here in the US.
Let's talk about your business. First, introduce yourself and what's the name of your business. Let's talk a little bit about what you do, and then we'll talk a little bit about your backstory, how you got into what you're doing now.
Krysta Van Ranst. I am the founder and learning business partner for Building People. And we focus on helping construction executives build their organizations without major losses by focusing on their people and the confidence that they all have to understand the decisions that they're making.
Why did you pick construction companies to work with?
I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, and I moved to the big city of Boston, which became not such a big city after living here for 15 or 16 years. And I just needed a job. And I fell into a job at Suffolk Construction and Learning and Development, not having any previous experience around the industry. I previously worked as a wedding planner. And so I always joked that I used to have entire meetings around napkin colors. And many folks, were not even regularly using napkins at my next job. And I had no idea, I had no real appreciation for what construction folks did. My understanding as someone who did not grow up and have family in the industry or have an interest in construction prior to, was that like they just happened to always get in the way for traffic purposes, right? Like that was truly the lack of understanding I had. And people are always just standing around, right? Like you hear those things from folks that are not in the industry. In some ways, I thought I was just going to do learning and development for a year in hopes that I could get into the marketing department. And 16 years later, as I said, happily in learning and development and also happily in construction. And what I quickly found out in being in construction was I loved the realness of the people in this industry. and that most of the preconceptions that I had around the construction industry were vastly incorrect. And I became infatuated with any building that was being built. Like, I then wanted to go and look up, like, oh, I wonder what that's going to be and who's building it. And I just had such an appreciation for the complexities, difficulties, and team mindset and manner that construction took. And so I left Suffolk after 4.5 years or so, and I left the industry altogether. Thought I was never going to come back, and when I came back, quickly realized, you know what, I'm never leaving again. I don't know what I was thinking by leaving this industry.
Let's talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. Walk us through the process of leaving a job and starting your own business. What prompted that? And talk a little bit about what that was like for you, because we have a lot of people listening who are sitting in a cubicle, working in a job site trailer, working on a crew, and they want to make the jump to do their own thing. So tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
My journey started at the end of 2019. We had some family things going on at home, and I needed to be home more. At the time, my commute was an hour and a half to one of our offices and closer to an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours to another office that we had that I was at 1 or 2 days a week. And this was pre-COVID. And the idea was not that there would be any sort of, and I didn't expect there to be any sort of remote options. And yet I didn't want to go work for another company because I really loved the company I was working for. I loved the leadership, what they were about, their values, but I needed to be home. And so I made this decision that, okay, we're going to figure things out. Let's reduce our expenses and see what is the absolute minimum that we could spend so that we could figure out what I need to make to be able to kind of have a freelance business for a period of time. And then we'll see, maybe I'll go back to this company if they'll have me. Maybe I'll look for something else if it doesn't work, or maybe we'll make this work. But it was very selfish in that way of like, I need to be home, so we're going to figure that out. Additionally, my husband was a stay-at-home dad, so there was no other income coming in from our household. I told my company in December of 2019 that I was going to do this. I said, you can, I can be available as long as you'd like, but I'm going to have to go down to 2 days. And 3 months in, COVID happened, and we were going to be home all the time, which was such a good time. However, in the last 4 years, it has been a really humbling experience to see my network continue to reach out and have an interest and understand and see the value that learning and development can provide specifically to the construction space, how needed it is, how there's not a bunch of people just waiting on the benches to be hired, and that it is now more important than ever to be upskilling your folks internally if you want to continue to grow, or even just to stay relevant where you're at, right? Because if you're not growing, you tend to be kind of stagnating. And so I would say around 2022, I had a part-time person in 2020, 2021, and in 2022, I hired 2 full-time folks, and we were able to actually build out a business and say, okay, it is no longer Krysta Van Ranst for building people, or Krysta Van Ranst being selfish to just try and like make ends meet. It has transitioned into like, wow, we've done some really cool things for our clients, and we have a lot more that we want to do for them. And we need to kind of formalize and really make sure that we are doing our best to provide for this industry.
What was one of your misconceptions about being a business owner or an entrepreneur that you had before making the jump that you found out was a misconception after the fact?
I mean, one of mine was like, okay, I can do this and I'll be able to work like 3 days a week, right? And I'll like, this is what I can charge, and then I can make what I need to make, and I'll just work 3 days. And it was very quickly apparent that maybe I was working for the clients 3 days, but then I was probably working on the back end another 3 or 4 on a regular basis, just to understand like, okay, now I have to figure out how to do a website, and like I am all of a sudden the IT department. That is one thing I have the biggest appreciation now as a small business owner. There are 6 of us all together that I'm like, I grossly underestimated the value of IT and how much I desperately miss having someone I can call when some sort of technology glitch is happening.
I think if I worked in IT for a large company, every once in a while I would just let something go wrong, probably, and then just be the hero, or maybe even create problems and then fix it and then say, that's what you pay me for. Because otherwise,
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Because when everything runs smoothly, people look at you and say, what are you doing? Like, what do we need you for? So yeah, I think if you work in IT, let some stuff slip through every once in a while, and then be the hero. Some of the best, sort of like a firefighter being an arsonist, which is not functional, maybe not a good idea, but something to consider. Yeah, you're exactly right. I made the transition from large corporate to small business to bigger company, and then back to being an entrepreneur. So all of the little things that somebody else took care of, like email. I absolutely hate setting up email and doing anything related to email. I almost quit on my business within a few days just from trying to set up my website. Let's go back to these training grants that are available. You mentioned that there needs to be some sort of objective. The company needs to be clear on what the objectives are. Things like, we want to communicate better. That's not acceptable. It's not a clear enough objective. Or, hey, we need to do management training because we never did it before. That's not really a clear objective. Can you give us an example of what a good business objective would be that would support a training grant?
So for those 2 examples, from a communications perspective, there could be a few different ones. Maybe it's the fact of like, when we talk about communications, it's, actually our people don't even know how to utilize Outlook or Gmail or whatever email system that you have. And so we could say, hey, like, what do you believe? And there are systems with Outlook that you can see what like the utilization rates are for your employees. And so you may realize that, from a Microsoft platform perspective or Microsoft Outlook, our utilization rate across the company is 40%. And we'd like to increase it to 75%. And so we're going to be doing some of these trainings to help folks utilize the technology better. From a communications perspective, a different approach could be, we have had, and I've had this example, here's a case study of like, we had a client who had $3.2 million in major losses in the previous year. And I said, why have those happened? And over again, everyone that I chatted with said it was because of a lack of communication. People weren't communicating appropriately. They were just doing. And I kept joking. I was like, just so I'm clear, if I provide a communications training, or if we recommend a communications training, that those major losses are going to be reduced. And they were adamant that yes, that was the case. And so the KPI, the business objective in this instance, was reducing major losses from $3.2 million down 25% was the number that we had decided on. And it actually went far greater than that. It went down to 700,000 2 years later. So drastically reducing those numbers. But, you want to make sure that you feel like that goal can be hit. And so not necessarily overreaching. But then you can also think about, from a manager development perspective, you could say turnover rates are really high. Maybe you want to reduce those, or employee engagement surveys. If you do anything along those lines, maybe there are pieces where like you're scoring your lowest and you'd like that to be improved. Or during exit interviews, if you have those with some of your employees, people are constantly saying that the managers have no idea what they're doing. Maybe there's a lot of meetings and you want to reduce the number of the number of hours people spend in meetings. So there's so many different metrics, as long as you can really tie the story to the training. It's a really good exercise to acknowledge not just doing training for training's sake, but making sure that there does feel like there's a valid reason, both for the business, but also for the employees. We all know, especially in this industry, people are not like, knocking down the door to be like, hey, when can I stop? When can I get off the job site so I can come sit in on a full day training or a half day training or whatever the case may be? And business owners aren't like, yes, let me keep paying you and not being able to expense it to a project. This sounds so fun. But there is a lot of savings, ideally, that can happen if you're doing learning and development or training the right way and aligning it and associating it to bottom line business goals.
That's a completely different way of thinking about training. And I think a lot of, in my experience, and I've been in the industry since 1997, and a lot of the training was because there was a box and somebody needed to check that box. Like, you need to do your safety training. You need to go we have to train you 40 hours. We want you to do 40 hours a year of continuous education or something. And we don't really care what it is, but there's a box that needs to be checked. And it's really a missed opportunity. But what you're saying is a better way to think about training is, let's think about an objective. Let's think about some friction in the process or a problem or some area for improvement, and then back into a training program. Beyond that, what you're saying is there's free money available that you're already, well, it's not free because you're already paying for it, but you're paying for this already. And I didn't know this was available. And if you knew about it, then good for you. But I didn't know that this was what we were paying for with our unemployment premium. So this is pretty fascinating. So one of the misconceptions about training is we just have to check a box, right? What are some other misconceptions that construction business owners have when it comes to learning and development or training?
Yeah, and I will agree that there are some like check the box pieces, right? From an OSHA perspective, there are some certifications that, would I want to do them again if I had to? No chance would I want to have to sit through some of them again. And there's just a necessary evil in our industry nowadays. I think some other misconceptions are, well, like, wait until something happens to make it to do the training versus kind of trying to get ahead of it. Even just onboarding new employees, right? A new employee, it's like, hey, our people learn best by just throwing them into the fire. I've heard that a million times. Our people learn best if you just throw them right in, sink or swim. We're going to figure out if they're a good fit. I'm like, great. If that is truly your culture and everyone is on board with that concept, best of luck to you. I don't believe that is the way most people learn best, even if they tell you that is the way that they learn best. And I know that because I have been told that more than 500 times. And then I have had folks who have said that and then gone through a formalized onboarding and said, I have never learned something so quickly in my life. I have never been more ready to be successful than I was at this last week. Right. And so I think there's an aspect that, yes, you don't know if this employee is going to be successful. So you don't want to put them through a 2-day, 3-day, 1 week's worth of meetings and connecting with your team and possibly formal training or shadowing or whatever the case may be if you're not sure it's going to work. However, you potentially spent a lot of money to recruit them if you used any sort of staffing agency. And if you are just questioning whether they're going to be worth it, what type of message are you sending to them right from the beginning? Like, we're not willing to invest in you just yet because you've only been an employee for a day. Whereas the notion that I think of is like, listen, at the end of the day, what is the likelihood of your new employees? If you went back the last 6, 12 months, however many folks you hired, and you could say, you know what, how much rework did that person cost us over that, for those first 30 to 60 days that they were with us? Or how much additional time did their manager have to spend with them? And so even doing it on the next hire, just saying, you know what, I'm going to do a little case study internally. How much is this person going to cost me? How much additional time am I going to spend with just them as the manager versus, is it $3,000, $4,000 in rework? I promise you, if you spent $1,500 of their time and your teammates' time to meet with them in that first week, you would probably save some of that money have an employee who feels super grateful, super loyal, super appreciated and appreciative of that effort that was put in, and a team of people around them that know who they are, what their strengths are, and where they need to improve within a week to 30 days.
Hey, it's Todd here, and I want to tell you about something new that we've launched recently. If you like this podcast and you'd like to connect with other like-minded construction business owners who listen to it so you can share ideas and share resources and best practices and network, if you'd like some access to exclusive content like Q&A calls and trainings from our team here, then you may want to go check out the Construction Leading Edge online community. It's brand new. This group is exclusively for construction business owners who want a profitable, self-managing business so they can have more time with their family, more profit, and more peace of mind. So if you're into leveling up as a construction entrepreneur, if you want to have more impact, if you're into creating wealth and personal development, then this is the place for you. Head over to constructionleadingedge.com/join, JOIN, to get all the details on the Construction Leading Edge community. That's constructionleadingedge.com/join. And I'll see you on the inside. Now, let's get back to the episode. You verbalize something a lot of people are thinking, but they wouldn't say out loud because it sounds really dumb when you say it out loud, which is, I hired this person, but I'm not sure I want to invest in training in this person because I'm not sure if they're going to work out, right? I think that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, well, I'm going to hire this person and then I'm going to withhold the things they need to be successful. I think one misconception I run into occasionally is that people just need time, right? If they're going to be a concrete finisher or an electrician or a project manager or a trim carpenter, there's this belief that, well, it just takes years to do that. They just need time. So I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a very large commercial concrete company, and they had people who were underskilled, and we started to dig into what their profit bleeds were, and they told me that they were losing about $100,000 a month in profit bleeds, lost productivity, rework, schedule delays, $1.2 million a year. And I said, what are you guys going to do about that? Well, our people just need time. They just need time. Like time is magically going to solve this lack of skills. In your experience, does it require a lot of time to pick up skill, or is there a shortcut to picking up skills rather than taking years and racking up profit bleeds and mistakes in the process? Is there a shortcut?
I think there is. I don't know the exact number, but I promise you 1.2 million in time that you hope that you're going to get back from a profitability perspective. It's lost. So it would be interesting to see, what that could look like, of what could you test out? Could you take $100,000? Could you take 1 month of that example and be like, let's test something out to see if if anything could be changed. The training is always a lagging indicator in some ways, like you're not going to immediately see the change that day or potentially that month. So that one is, you've got to give it a little bit more time than just 1 month. What I will say is that I think in this industry, if you are going to provide a training, it will not help. Time will not help, and training will not help if you don't allow people in this industry to challenge the information. And I think about this in as small of a term as like an SOP. Why does this process exist in our organization? Because plenty of people are like, they hate the paperwork and they're like, why do I have to do it this way? It just seems like a waste of time. So my recommendation to organizations is like, let them challenge it and hear out what they have to say. Understand maybe there are ways of improving that, training wise, process wise, whatever the content is. And if they have a valid reason to do that, update the process and share it out with the team. There are probably other folks who are thinking that and they understand, okay, now, they've heard, they're listening, and they're willing to do something about it. Then when when you as a business are willing to do something about it, their behavior change is also more likely to take place because they've seen it reciprocated, right? Whereas there are a lot of folks, it's like, well, I asked the leadership team, I told them about this great new technology, or I told them about this situation that I don't feel is right. And I explained why, and they never listened. And so then you're pushing training to them where they don't feel that they're heard. And so the likelihood of trying it out and doing something is low. The other piece I'll say is that a lot of training is like, okay, here's how to do this thing. We're going to teach it to you. We're going to teach you we have a 45-minute boot camp on this, right? And so it's like, we're going to have a 45-minute boot camp on concrete finishing. I'll use your example. Those are contradictory terms. No boot camp I've ever been to has been 45 minutes, and I don't think the military would call that a boot camp either. And so there has to be an acknowledgement that, like, yes, a training event could happen, but then what actions do the employees need to the participants need to do in order to actually take that information and make some behavior changes? And what information or what actions do the managers need to take to ensure that they are accountable and that they're holding people accountable and that there's real change within the organization? There's a lot of information going on, right? Like just this conversation alone, there's no Staples easy button, but it does provide longer solutions that will last, and employees that are like really knowledgeable and have a real ability to be safe and empowered to do their work.
What I'm hearing you say is when it comes to training, I'm hearing you say there's more to it than just pushing information to someone. There's more to training than just reading a PowerPoint slide. And just side note, if you ever do a presentation and it has lots of words on it, don't start by saying, I know everybody can read this PowerPoint, and then don't proceed to read the PowerPoint. First of all, like, do everybody a favor and probably just stay away from PowerPoint. Let's just stay away from PowerPoint.
Todd's top tips.
If I'm in your presentation and you have too many words on the slides, I'm probably going to bounce. I'm going to leave because it just drives me crazy. Anyway, back to the question, the topic at hand. It sounds like there's more to training than just pushing information one way at people. It seems like there's follow-up, there's accountability, there's some sort of action that's required to actually get this stuff to show up. And I want to talk about a specific problem that I hear a lot, right? And it's about behavior change. So let's talk about existing employees who seem reluctant, maybe opposed to following an SOP, right? Very specific, doing daily logs. This is a struggle. Superintendents. So here's the case study. Here's the challenge. And I'm curious how you would go about changing this behavior. What are some tips for changing this behavior? We have superintendents who are job site superintendents, and it's clearly defined on their job description. We call them big fives. They have big five activities that they do every day. And it's very clear that their job is to fill out a daily log. And it's clear what a completed daily log looks like every day, but they don't do it. So if you're talking to a construction business owner who's like, Krysta, how do I get these guys and gals? Actually, the gals probably do it. Let's just be honest. It's probably the guys who aren't doing it. How do I get these guys to fill out their freaking daily logs? How do I get them to change? Do I threaten to fire them? Do I have to give them a bonus? Do I have to give them gold stickers, little gold stars on their hard hat every day they fill out a daily log? How do I get them to change? What advice would you give them?
I usually ask, like, why aren't they doing it? And they'll say, I don't know. I've been pushing them forever. And I'm like, no, but have you asked them? Why aren't they doing the daily logs? What is getting in the way of them doing them? Usually there's like, no, I just told them I wanted them to complete it once, and then I never followed up on it, and I'm now frustrated. And so you are a great ear to listen to my frustration. Great. I'm happy to be that ear. Now we've got to actually ask them why it's not happening. And so there might be some really good insights into why. Maybe on site, they don't have internet connection, and they need the internet connection to be able to do that. And so then like they have to drive 2 hours at the end of the day, and they're exhausted when they do end up having internet connection. Oh, okay. Is there something that you can do? And so this becomes learning and training. We've been saying the word training, but when we were talking about behavior change, when I used to be the director of training, I specifically, when I was hired, said I don't want that title of training. I want it to be learning and development. And development is actually shortened for learning and organizational development. Because at the end of the day, there are some pieces that don't really have anything to do with training or learning. It's just how can we make our employees' lives more efficient and easier for them to do the job that they love doing, and utilizing the strengths of them being out on site and either doing the skilled labor or managing all of the different complexities that is the GC work. That's the first piece, is understanding like what barriers are coming into play to get these folks to complete those. And then once those barriers have been removed or roadblocks have been removed, how are we going to now say, all right, like now that we've removed these barriers, it's really important that this happens. And we're going to be checking in with you. And then are you going to provide the carrot or the stick? What situation are you going to have? And you as leadership need to really stay true to that. That if some people, it's like, oh, I'm going to reprimand these folks, but I'm not going to reprimand these other folks because they do a good job on all these other things. That message quickly gets shared with the whole company. And then it becomes like, oh, well, like Rick never does them. And so if I miss some of them, it's fine too. So there has to be consistency if you want accountability.
Let's say you go through that process, you identify the obstacles, you come up with solutions. At what point do you say, you know what, maybe this is not a hill we want to die on? Maybe we just eliminate the daily logs. How would somebody decide when something's not a hill they want to die on? Or in other words, how do people know when it's time to give up on trying to get somebody to change?
Depend on the goals that you have as a business and your values and your mission and your vision. And those are corporate-y terms that I know a lot of folks are like, oh God, like we're not that corporate company. We don't need a mission or a vision, or we don't need values. I would agree if they don't have any meaning behind them. And I would agree if they're just tacked on like every other company's. They're like, oh, we're honesty and integrity. Those are two of our values that so many construction companies have. Okay, great. Well, like, how does that compare against the other organizations that also have honesty and integrity? How is that different? And so I think the hills that you die on should have something to do with why you are in business in the first place and what you like focus on as a differentiator. And if daily logs have some sort of correlation to that, in the sense that we are going to be, our value is communicating every detail that happens on our projects all the time, then maybe that's where that is a hill that you're going to die on, because that is really important. And so I think that would be the way that I would decide what those are, and really thinking like and maybe that's one owner that has to make those decisions because they are the majority owner. Maybe there are multiple executives that can make that decision, or maybe it's something that is done at the company level that everybody has the opportunity to participate in building those out and then coming to a decision as a group. From an individual, like when do we decide that person can't change? I don't believe that exists. I believe that anyone can change. It's just their willingness to do so in those situations. And I don't like the term of like letting someone go, but making them available to the market might be something that you have to do if they are not willing to abide by the business that you have built. If they're not willing to change. Now, if they have some solid reasons as to why and they seem valid, then you're at least having a conversation as to what that looks like. But if they don't like change for change's sake, then they probably are going to get change, whether they want it or not. And it will probably be a situation that they aren't super happy about.
Hey, it's Todd here. And we have a couple of free resources that we want to get in your hands. First is our free training video, get out of your construction business, how to make it run without you this year. Here's what you're going to get when you sign up for this free training video. You'll learn about the JETS thinking trap, which stands for just enough to start. That's probably keeping you stuck working in your business, and it keeps you stuck in firefighting mode, and it affects probably 90% of construction businesses. You'll also learn about the first few crucial steps you want to take if you want to spend more time working on your business instead of being stuck working in it. And you'll learn what nailing the handoff looks like and how it will help you eliminate 80% of your preventable schedule delays and profit bleeds. You can get your hands on that free video over at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT. And the second thing is a question. Here's a question. Is your business structured for success, or is it designed for failure? We found a study and found that there are 5 root causes of contractor failure, 5 primary reasons that successful contractors self-destruct. All right. This is information that we feel like every construction business owner should know about. You should know about it for 2 reasons. If you're a general contractor, 1, you need to find out if your business is structured for success. And if you're a general contractor and you have subcontractors, you may want to ask this question: are your subs structured for success or structured for failure? And if you would like to evaluate your business to see if it's designed for success, the next step is to apply for a business evaluation call with my team. We'll go through these 5 root causes of failure, evaluate your business, and then give you some pointers. Highlight the red flags, the early indicators that you may want to focus your energy on. And if it makes sense, we can talk through the details of our Systematize Your Construction Business program that will ensure it is structured for success. If you would like to schedule your free business evaluation, go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or simply go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. Now, let's get back to the episode. My approach to that is if somebody's not following a process, my approach is like, okay, now we're going into job loss prevention mode. And I'm trying to help you keep your job here. And what I found is I can't motivate people. People ask me, how do I motivate my people? And I don't believe you can, but I think as a leader, we can help people find their own motivation. And that works a lot better than me trying to motivate somebody. So if you can help somebody find their own motivation, if they have enough motivation to follow your process and change, then they will. But if they don't have enough motivation to change and follow your process, then it's probably time to make it clear to them that if they choose to continue to not follow your process, then they want to be made available to the market. And that's okay. But I like the way you're thinking through this, the way you explain that is get clear on your vision, get clear on your core values. And if there's a behavior that's not consistent with those core values, then you can't allow that, because it's not really what you celebrate, it's what you tolerate. And as you said, if you tolerate one person not following the process and expect everybody else to, then that spreads like a cancer through an organization. So great advice there.
I recently saw a quote, and it was around like a sports coach. I don't remember what. It's the Olympics time, so I don't remember what it was. But the coach said, "My job is to find people better than you. Your job is to make that impossible or really hard to find." Right? And so the coach is constantly having to find new talent. That is part of their job. And you as the player or as the employee, that your job is to make sure that you are working, you're doing your best so that it's hard to find that replacement.
If you think about what that looks like in an organization, after you get that flywheel spinning, you have leadership who is trying to bring in talent that's better than the people they have on the bench already. Meanwhile, the people on the bench are trying to outwork and outplay the new people, and everybody's getting better. And that's an interesting part about a truly competitive team. My son played college basketball, and the coach's job was they're constantly trying to bring new recruits in who are better than the people they have. And I'm sure the guys on the team were like, hey, coach, you're bringing these new guys in and they're really challenging me and they're trying to take my playing time away. And the coach is thinking, exactly, that's how we all get better. And I think that's a great way to think about continuously improving your business. And if you have 7s on your team, go hire 8s. Then when you get to an average of 8, go hire 9s and 10s and constantly get better. Yeah, I love that.
And your people aren't going to stay 7s, right? Like if you hire 8s, ideally they're going to also become 8s themselves.
And some people may be thinking, yeah, but I've got a couple of 5s on my team. What about them? Well, they'll probably leave because they don't want to be around. My experience is that the B and C players don't enjoy being around A players, and the B and C players will opt out and they will go somewhere else that's more comfortable and make themselves available to the marketplace, as you said. Yeah. So if somebody's thinking, this sounds great, I want to come up with a training program, it sounds like the first thing I need to do is get really clear on my organizational goals. How would you advise they do that? Where should they start?
If you've got a leadership team and you want to talk through what those look like, I think that is always a great place to start. If it's just you as one leader, then I would recommend going to your people and asking them and saying, okay, if we wanted to improve on 1 or 2 things over the next year, what would they be? And trying to be really clear as to what there's the SMART goal kind of concept of like, is it specific? Is it measurable? That measurable piece is the thing that's most important. Is it achievable? Is it relevant? And is it time bound? That is what SMART goals stand for. And there are certain different acronyms used, but all similar to that. And so I would highly recommend that those goals be measurable of sorts, and then decide on maybe your top 3, 2 or 3 to choose from, and figure out, then you can kind of back into what actions do we need to take, what learning opportunities, what is this going to look like, and build out a program that way. Think about whether you're going to have a budget that you can associate to it so that you can hire external folks to do some of these programs, or if you're going to do it all in-house. There are pros and cons of each, right? Like if you are going to hire folks, they'll probably be able to provide the training more quickly than folks that are going to have to build it in-house before doing the training. But the pro of doing it in-house is that it will be very, very custom and specific to your folks. So I don't have an answer to that one. I think it depends on the culture and the speed at which you need to make these changes.
I'm thinking of a few measurable objectives that some of our clients have established. Some are financial. So for example, I want to increase bottom line profitability by 6%. That's a very specific goal. We want to reduce our average project completion time. Custom home builder may say, we're at 15 months and we want to complete them in 12 months, or we want to be able to have 0 punch list, something like that. Or we want to dial in have a documented pre-construction process, something like that. So I like that. Start with your team. Hey, what are the problems we have? Let's come up with some measurable goals that would really move the needle and have a noticeable impact, and then work backwards into training. And I would say, if you're thinking about doing it in-house, there are some problems with doing it yourself. That's what we've seen a lot of people who've tried to do these things on their own, some with success, but when you're trying to come up with a program on your own, in some cases, you can't see your own blind spots. You don't know how other people are doing it. And there's tremendous value in having that objective third party who can come in and say, I can see the forest for the trees. I can see these things in your blind spots. And oh, by the way, this is how dozens or hundreds of our clients have solved this exact problem. So you get the benefit of that outside perspective. Okay, a couple of quick hit questions as we wrap this up. What is something you believe to be true about business that some may say is a little unconventional, maybe even crazy?
I would say that convenience is overrated in business. And I mean that less, and I know the value of convenience, but I think often in business, it just, like, for whatever reason, we've defined lazy as convenient. And I don't believe in doing things lazy. And I think we've gotten, like, the technology has made a lot of people lazy.
You're in Boston, correct?
I am.
If someone visits Boston, what is the restaurant or bar they should not miss while visiting that city?
Well, so technically I'm 26.2 miles west of Boston in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. We are the start of the Boston Marathon, which is why I know exactly how far away we are. I don't go into Boston very often. However, the last time I was there was a tiny plates, where they have you would get multiple plates and share them with a table. And it was called something like the Purple Donkey. Now you're going to have to quote me on it. I'm probably going to have to send it to you so that we can make sure it's linked in the podcast somewhere. And it was in Cambridge, Mass. And it was absolutely delicious.
The Purple Donkey Tapas restaurant, small plates, something like that in Cambridge. What about in your hometown? Is there a place people should go if they're visiting there?
I personally love there is a place called Pan Thai. It's a Thai restaurant. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. And they've got some great drinks as well.
This has been fantastic. I'm sure we could talk about behavior change and systems and processes and this for hours. Unfortunately, we don't have that time. Maybe people would listen to it. Maybe we'll have a round two at some point. But in the meantime, if people want to connect with you or learn more about what you do or contact you about potentially working together, where are some of the best places for them to go?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me at Krysta Van Ranst, Krysta. My mom had to be different with the spelling. Or you can find our organization online at buildingppl.com. It's building people, but without the people part is without the vowels.
Got it. We'll be sure to put those links in the show notes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, down below this video. So, Krysta, great stuff. Thanks for taking the time to be on here. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me, Todd.
Hey, it's Todd here. And one more thing before you go. Look, if you own a construction business and you want to put the right systems in place so you can either scale it up, maybe you want to step away from it, be able to take a proper vacation, maybe you want to sell it someday, maybe you just want to have more freedom, or maybe make it more profitable, or maybe you just want to get out of constant firefighting mode and make your phone stop ringing all the time. You really have three options if you want to make a meaningful change in your business. Option one is do nothing. Status quo, keep doing the same things, getting the same results. Option two, you can DIY it. You can do it yourself. You can reinvent the wheel. You can read books, listen to podcasts, try to piece together a solution, use trial and error. Or option number three, if you want meaningful change, is to find a proven system that delivers the results you're looking for. Sort of like if you use software for project management or for your bookkeeping, I assume you probably didn't try to code your own software. You found a proven system that delivered the results you're looking for, right? Well, if you're looking for a proven system to systematize your business, we've helped hundreds of construction business owners implement our systems in their business, specifically our nail the handoff pre-construction process in their business. It works for home builders, remodelers, commercial general contractors. It also works really well for trade contractors like electricians, concrete contractors, site, utility, plumbing. And it's part of our Systematize Your Construction Business program. So if you want to see what systematizing your business looks like, what nailing the handoff looks like, and the positive side effects that come with that, then the next step would be to schedule a free business evaluation call with my team. And you can do that by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or just go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. You'll learn about the 5-step process we've helped hundreds of people implement to systematize their construction business. Most importantly, you'll get an objective third-party evaluation of your business to answer one really big question. Is your business designed to fail, or is it designed to succeed? So let me ask you this. If your business was unintentionally designed to fail, when would you rather find out? Now, while there's time to do something about it, or later on when it's maybe too late? This business evaluation call is totally free. There are no strings attached, no pressure. And it could be the best hour you've spent working on your business in a long time. So our schedule fills up pretty quickly. So if you're interested, go over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, or go to constructionleadingedge.com and tap the apply now button to book your business evaluation call. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got value out of this podcast. If you could take a moment, if you did, and leave a rating or a review or share this with somebody who needs to hear it, I would appreciate it. Todd Dawalt from Construction Leading Edge. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.